Welcome back to In Her Image, a podcast where we seek and celebrate our Mother God through scripture, scholarship, mythology, the arts, and everyday life. I am Jess Burdett, the creator of this podcast. And today, Jessica Woodbury will be interviewing the ladies who curated and put on the Certain Women art show. These ladies are amazing. I actually had the opportunity to attend their show themed around Heavenly Mother. I flew out to Utah for it from my home in Fort Worth, and it was such a beautiful experience. And they have actually put together a book that's for sale on Amazon. If you would like to see all of the art that was on display, there is so much, and it is amazing. So, Laura Erekson was born in Oakland, California, and currently lives and works in Salt Lake City, Utah. She received her BFA from Brigham Young University in drawing, painting, printmaking, and sculpture, as well as her MAT from George Mason University. Her printmaking and sculpture background heavily influenced her current body of work. Her work examines broad themes while also being intensely personal, allowing viewers to feel intimately connected to the artist. Each piece is grounded firmly in the medium, and she often explores the boundaries of the material she is working with. Laura's work has been exhibited in Maryland, Virginia, Utah, New York City, in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and is part of the Church History Museum's permanent collection in SLC, Utah. The varied mediums of Nicole Woodbury's expressive work capture that sense of awe and wonder she feels from nature by blending the beauty of mathematical and scientific elements with creative expression. In undulating forms of marbled porcelain, in steel and glass expressions of celestial orbits, and in the delicate curves of white string, she uses organic patterns to express the universal truth that we are purposefully and powerfully made. Woodbury studied at Brigham Young University and received a Bachelor's of Fine Art in Studio Art with an emphasis in 3D design. She and her work were recently featured in the BYU TV show Artful, Season 4, Episode 4. She has been featured in several juried shows across the country, including Rogue, Women's Voices, and the Bountiful Davis Art Center, and the Sears Museum in St. George. Her work has been featured in Exponent 2 and the 34th, 35th, and 36th annual spiritual and religious shows at the Springville Museum of Art. In 2022, she received a Purchase Award in All Are Like Unto God, the 12 International Art Competition of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She participated in a few shows at Written Vision, Provo, Utah in 2023. She is a co-founder and organizer of the Certain Women Art Show. We hope you enjoy this part 1 of a 2-part interview with Laura and Nicole. Here's Jessica Woodbury.
Welcome to the In Her Image podcast. I am really excited this week to have 2 guests with me. I have Nicole Woodbury and Laura Erekson, and these 2 women are putting on the Certain Women Art Show in Provo, Utah right now at the J. Kirk Richards Gallery in Provo. And I first became aware of this art show in 2021. And I was already very much, I'd been passionate about the topic of Heavenly Mother for years at this point. And I saw that this art exhibit was going on. And when I went and walked into that exhibit for the first time, I felt holiness in that building. It felt like a temple to me. And as I walked around that gallery, it had such a huge impact on me. I ended up taking my family members, I was in charge of activity days at that time and took my activity day girls there, and just they are doing such a good, important work. So I am excited to talk to them today about their art show and how the Certain Women Art Show came about a little bit about past exhibits that they have done, about the current exhibit, so that those of you who are interested can go take a look at it before it ends. And could one of you remind me when the last day of that exhibit is?
It's June 7th.
June 7th. So you'll have a little while to get there. So I hope that you're able to go check that out and just to hear about their stories, about their love for art and their love for our Mother in Heaven. So welcome so much to the show, Laura and Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I want each of you, if you could, to begin by telling me a little bit about your background. What is the short story of your artistic journey? Nicole.
I started art when I was a kid and went to school for it. I went to BYU. I actually majored in sculpture, but I was starting for graphic design and then studied graphic design, did a few of the programs, applied, didn't get in, and then I was going to apply again. And I went to Italy and realized that I didn't really have a super big passion for graphic design. And I actually fell in love with sculpture. And especially like in Italy, like the sculptures there are incredible. And so did the sculpture program, graduated, and now I do it part-time kind of, as I'm also a full-time mom. And yeah, just trying to keep doing it is really what's happening. And I've been in shows kind of all over the country and recently was featured in the BYU show Artful. I've been in the International Church Art Competition, various things. And then this is my passion project, doing the Certain Women Art Show. I've been doing this since its origin in 2018. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. The work that I do is so sculptural. I also kind of do 2D work as well. So I have a little bit of a background in painting. The work I do always involves something scientific. Something I like to think about a lot is that all the creations that God has made are connected to us, and that the care with which our heavenly parents created the world and the universe, they created us as well. And so that's something that I carry into a lot of my works. And I like to sort of have that expression of awe in the work that I create. So I have a lot of scientific stuff, geology, astronomy, neurology, different aspects like that. So
I love that. I think it's so interesting and so unique because a lot of times some people would think that those worlds are very separate. And yet there are many like you have found these beautiful ways in which you see the beauty of science and of the world and the way that it works, and have been able to use that and help, I think, even others potentially see a love for science through your art as well, and for the natural world, right?
Yeah.
It kind of bridges those worlds. Sometimes you have people that are very scientific, and then your work and incorporating that can help them appreciate the artistic side of things as well. And then those that are in the art world and bridging that in the other direction as well. I love that. Thank you for I've noticed that in your, I was going back and looking at the work from the previous show as well. And maybe we'll talk about that as well, and how you incorporated science and the body and our biology into that piece of art.
Right. The bone marrow imagery and how it connects to feminism is kind of interesting.
So, Laura, could you share with us how you became involved in this world of art?
Well, my dad bought my first painting when I was about 5 years old for $5.
That's pretty good for a 5-year-old.
Of a horse, And I said, hey, this is for sale. I always expressed myself through the arts. So I did music, visual art, I danced. And as I became older, and was told I had to choose, I actually started off with vocal performance. So I was always doing art, but I majored in vocal performance for a couple of years. And then I served a mission in Italy. And then I changed to visual art when I got back. Italy's brave for everything in the arts, right?
It was impactful in both of your stories.
Yes. But I'm definitely, with music, I'm all about the performing, not so much the math side. And in art, I'm much more well-rounded, and I loved both of them. So then I decided to pursue art, and I got a BFA from BYU in the painting, printmaking, drawing program at that time, but I kind of shifted into sculpture because thankfully they make you take these core classes, and I fell in love with welding and I love power tools. And so I ended up my studio was in the sculpture department ultimately. So I love trying all different forms of medium for creating art. So then I went to DC and worked at the Hirshhorn Museum on the exhibition team. Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden. It's part of the Smithsonian. And I was on the exhibition team. I'd set up the shows. I'd take down the shows. It was a wonderful experience where I got to touch these amazing works of art that I just saw in the textbooks, in college, in art history. And it was very exciting. And I was practicing my art. I had graduated. And so I was practicing my art, and I got in a show in the Smithsonian. So that's my claim to fame. I've shown in the Smithsonian.
That's amazing.
Which was shocking. And I'm still, yes, that was the high point.
No. I can't
kidding,
wait to see
else.
what you still do.
It was a great point though in my career. And I then moved to Utah. And right when I moved to Utah, I had a baby literally the day after I got in town, which was unexpected. So, and I married a little bit later in Mormon culture. I was 29. And the way I was raised is, I was going to be a wife and mother. And that's what I was going to do. And I wasn't going to pursue anything outside of that. By the time I got married, I feel like I was so solidified in my own identity as a soul entity that I discovered that no, I wasn't going to stop. I didn't want to stop. I had a conversation with my mom on the phone, and I was very pregnant. This is before I had my first, but I was very pregnant, and I was trying to figure out, how am I going to be an artist and do this thing called motherhood? How am I going to have babies and pursue my art? And my mom said, well, you're not. You're going to be a mom. Like, why are you worrying about this? And, that was just the mentality. And I said, well, why can't I do both? And so my current technique, so I did a lot of sculpture before becoming a mother. I was very much in the 3-dimensional world. I had in one of the church history international competitions, I had a big kinetic steel clock that got into the show, and that's what I was doing. And it was a series of problem solving because of motherhood that I kind of came up with my current technique, where I thought, because I thought, welding probably for me, I wasn't comfortable welding with all of the things going on, being pregnant and having small children. And so not having a separate warehouse that I could go to, so I thought, how can I make paintings more 3-dimensional? How can I carry some of my sculptural elements into another body of work? And how can I work so that I can be a mom and be home with my kids and still pursue this passion of mine? And so I then started playing with found objects and putting them into thick medium on canvas and on panels. And my current technique was born, which I am known for in the local art scene. And most people can easily recognize my work because it's almost like relief sculpture. It's so textural. So yeah, motherhood, really, had it not been for, becoming a mom, I don't know when I would have discovered this technique or if I would have done it at all. And so I give motherhood credit to this, which has made me better. And then I also, as I became a mom, I started exploring motherhood in my work and looking at the silhouette, looking at the shape of my body, all the different changes that happen in your body, and depicting those silhouettes and those shapes in my work and exploring the actual topic of mother, not Heavenly Mother at that point, but motherhood, womanhood, everything that comes with bearing and carrying children. And so I have a large portion of my work that has been exploring that over the years. And I have a few bodies of work that have kind of gone on. I have my Builder series you see behind me, where I use a lot of tools. I use tools, and it's about building our relationships with ourselves, with God, and with each other. And so that's actually, for me, my first spiritual body of work. Most people, when they look at this, their mind doesn't necessarily go there. And then I just continued to kind of explore that technique. I started using plants. So you'll see a lot of plants in my work, collaborating with Mother Nature, I call it, along with found objects. And I've kind of mixed the two things together. So I have a variety of bodies of work that explore broad themes like time, faith, nature, identity, and motherhood, womanhood, the divine feminine. Mm-hmm. And you'll see, as you become familiar with my work, you'll be able to kind of pinpoint what is what, but they're fairly broad themes. And I I've just continued to pursue that thread of motherhood into the divine feminine and heavenly mother, obviously, over the recent years. And I've shown in a variety of places across the country and galleries and various venues.
Yeah, thank you. I love getting a bit of a glimpse into both of your backgrounds and the things that you love to incorporate into your work, because I've seen your work and, like you said, Laura, your work is very recognizable, and I love the texture of it. I love the way that you can see the different physical things that you've used to create impressions on the canvas and all that. And there's also always kind of been this question of like, oh, I wonder why she chose this or why she chose that. And noticing all those tools, that's one thing that I have noticed a lot, is the use of tools and pliers and wrenches and things like that are in the work. And so it's interesting to get that background more of how that symbolism of using tools to build, to create, to build relationships with God or self, etc. So thank you. I hope that maybe we'll have to put in the show notes some links to both of your work so that as individuals listen, they can easily go and look and see and understand and get a better idea of your work, of what you're talking about, of those things that you feel drawn to and that you are so good at creating. So speaking of creating, how did you create? What led to creating the Certain Women art show?
So I'll start because I was there at the beginning at its origin, I guess. So it kind of goes back to Italy again, that study abroad that I had talked about. On that study abroad were just like a lot of amazing girls. I mean, we weren't like full-blown women yet, right? Like we were still kind of growing and developing our own artistic voices. And it was definitely just like a beautiful experience to be with these women that we had so much in common with. And then I moved to DC. My husband went to law school, and so we lived in DC for a little while and then came back here, and I found myself in Draper and just kind of like, oh, like how do I connect with anyone around me, and reconnected with some dear friends that were on the study abroad with me. Andrea Larson, Katie Ricks, and Emily Fuller. And it was really fun. We would get together. We all had kids around the same age. And so we would get together at one person's house and we would babysit each other's kids. And so we had this like babysitting swap going. We would all meet and make art in the studio, and then we would swap out watching each other's kids. So we get like 2 hours worth of studio time for like an hour of babysitting. And so it was great. And when we were doing that, there was a lot of collaborative thinking going on. And we talked a lot about, wouldn't it be interesting to do a show of LDS moms or, LDS artists and LDS women artists or mom artists or, something along that vein. And then Emily actually and Katie were the ones who took this idea for a show to various venues and started proposing it to various venues. And we even took it to the Springfield Museum of Art, and Rita Wright was like, I don't know if it has enough teeth, if it's going to be interesting enough, And so we were like, oh, okay. So we tried to add teeth to the statement. And, then we took it to Anthony's Fine Art in Salt Lake City, and Micah Christensen just fell in love with the idea, and he really could see our vision of what we wanted and then, or what they wanted. At that point, I wasn't on yet. And then she invited me to help her with the show. And so we gathered as many LDS women artists that we had known about at the time. And Laura was one of them. And we asked them to just, hey, put a piece in our show. It'd be great if we could just like establish some kind of community. And Micah would say that it was an ice core sample of what was going on in our LDS women's faith community and the artists, what we were thinking. And so that first show was really exciting, and it was a lot of work, and there was a lot of collaboration involved. And after the show, we kind of had to come to a point of, are we going to do it again? What effect is this going to have on our families? And so ultimately the other three decided not to do it again because of their own family things. But I asked if I could find some people to help me, if it would be okay if I continued the show, because I really loved it and I really believed in it. being a really big influence for good and empowering women. And so they said, yes, go ahead. And, like I had their blessing kind of a thing. So we're all still friends. Um, and so we decided so I asked Laura Erekson and Mary Bricky, and I picked Laura because she kept on, during that first show, we would run into her at the various events that were held, and she kept coming up to me specifically. I don't know if it was like I was just there, she probably talked to the other organizers too, I don't know, but she kept coming up to me and saying, hey, good job, keep this going, this is important, and I think there were other women that did that too, but for some reason it really like stuck out to me. And so I asked Laura if she could be in the show with me and help me out. And she's like, yes. And I have ideas. I have ideas on how we're going to improve this, And so, and then I asked Mary Bricky to come as well. I had met her taking a class from her brother, Joseph Bricky, and he's a really well-known artist as well. And I had taken a class from him and she was in the class. And so we kind of got to know each other there a little bit. And so I asked her, one of the things that we tried to do in organizing the curation is we try to have someone who's from a more contemporary background, someone who is a classical background, and someone who's kind of in the middle. And because I had taken these classical classes, I was kind of like, I guess I'll be the middle person. I don't know. And then Laura was more the contemporary person, even though she does also have a background in classical art too. And then Mary was more of our classical artist. So we could get sort of these different perspectives of the different types of art, kind of like, hey, is this good or is this good?
Mm-hmm.
And Laura has something to say. Yes.
Can I just interject? I was not looking for this. I was not asking for this. I was an artist, I was there to make art. And when I got the email from Nicole asking me to do this with her, I had never even considered being in a curatorial position or anything like this. And I sat on it for a while and I thought about it, probably prayed about it. I don't know. I don't remember, but I definitely did a lot of thinking. And I thought, yeah, I never would have sought this out for myself. I think I really want to know why she asked me. And so I felt very passionately about the mission. And I really firmly believed and still believe that this demographic of LDS women need a platform to have a voice and a safe space to express their feelings, their thoughts, their life experience, their journeys of everything. And I felt so strongly about that's why I said yes, because I didn't know Nicole at all.
Yeah, we really didn't. I mean, our paths
our paths should have crossed in college,
but it didn't even.
But I did. Yeah, I asked her, I said, hey, yes, I will do this. And why me? Because you don't know me from Eve. And she said, you just kept on coming up and talking to me and you were so passionate. And I thought, oh, I'm too talkative. I'm too passionate.
No, that's a good thing.
But I am very glad because it was and it is something that I am clearly passionate about. And we have been able to work really well together and just improve the situation as the years go by.
I relate to that because that's kind of even like the situation with this podcast, right? Where I was like, I'm not a podcaster, but I sure am passionate about the topic. So sit with it, think about it. And then all of a sudden, here you are.
Yeah, I'm just an artist. I just make art.
And I'm sure glad that you did. I mean, I have only known the art show since you joined it, but it really, the mission that you expressed of what you feel so passionate about, I believe in too. I feel the importance of women in our community being able to feel empowered, being able to use and develop their gifts further, to be able to put their voice and their work and their gifts to the world out in a way that can benefit their brothers and sisters and all their siblings. And so I am grateful that you did join. And it seems like you're doing a great job. How are you feeling about this new role? You are now a curator.
I know it's been how many years, Nicole? At this point, it's been
since
several.
Our first show was 2019.
So it's been about 5 years, and it's still kind of like, imposter syndrome at times, as everyone has, I think, with whatever you're pursuing. But sometimes it is a little surreal. But it's becoming more normal, right? As I continue to do it, and as we fine tune our dynamic and the way that we do things, it's becoming smoother and more natural. But at times I do stop and think, this is interesting. I never envisioned this path, but I feel like
I feel the same way, Laura. Like I really didn't, I never considered myself a curator. The role that I played in the show was graphic designer. I was there. I would, design pamphlets and posters and stuff for them. But I think we all have, as artists, we have sort of a natural tendency towards understanding beauty and understanding visual language. And so, so anyone who wants to put together a women's show, or any kind of art show, it can be really exciting, but also really daunting. And the only way to do it is just to try doing it,
And I love how both of you are just so open to the universe. I think that's such an important thing, to just be open to possibilities and to be open to the divine. And when something comes across your path, to not necessarily just say, well, no, that's not what I saw myself doing. Or wait, I don't know how to do this yet, but to just be open. And as things come into our path, to have the flexibility and to give it the space to sit and contemplate, and then be willing to be courageous and try something new and go in a different direction. And that's going to be different for every person. And so maybe a lot of our listeners, it may not be creating an art show. Maybe it is, but maybe there's something else as well that you just to be open to, and an area of growth that you never anticipated that may bring a lot of richness to your life and bless so many other people, like the show that you two have given so much for has blessed so many people.
It's been really rewarding.
It is.
It's been really rewarding.
It is. We love it. We've never paid ourselves for this. So,
I wasn't going to bring
we try to really focus a lot on amplifying the artists' voices, and we really tried to make this about the artists in the show and helping the women, because a lot of times we can get behind in a lot of areas. And so it was sort of a way to help women get noticed. There was a lot of talk at the time that was sort of like, where are all the women artists? And I just thought, well, if we gather them all in one place, they'll be amplified and then you can see them. And that's really happened, I feel like, in the past 5 years, that everywhere in all of the other art shows in Utah, you see all of these women artists are participating, and that is amplifying their voices even more as well. And they're getting noticed, which is just so rewarding to see that as well.
Absolutely. So in the beginning, what was its first kind of mission, and has that changed over time as you have continued to do more shows and as it's evolved?
Well, I think the original mission statement had a few things in it that we changed, but it really has always been about amplifying these specific women's voices. I think specifically LDS women artists, that group was just somewhere that we could speak from. It wasn't necessarily trying to exclude anybody. It was just, this is who we are. And if we gather together in this vein, we can amplify that. And so that really was the purpose of it. Yeah, like Laura said, to provide a space for these expressions. So the purpose was really like, here we are, and this is what we have to say. And so figuring out what we have to say was the next part of the battle.
Right, because the first show was really open.
It
open. Didn't necessarily have a theme. It could be whatever anyone wanted to bring to the table.
Right.
So yeah, how did you decide to create themes.
It was really tricky, because we decided there's two thoughts on the matter. One was we're going to ask artists to put art in the show, and no one likes a school assignment. No one likes to be told what to make, right? But Laura brought up some really good points about cohesion and how the show needed to, in order to amplify our voice, we also had to be saying similar things and having perspectives on something similar, but even though our perspectives were going to be different. And so Laura really, do you want to say anything to that, Laura?
I felt very strongly about making it an assignment. I said, we have to have a theme, and not only do we have to have a theme, they have to make work specifically for that theme. So new work, fresh work, their best new fresh work that has never been shown before. And like Nicole said, having that theme, the church does it with the International Art Competition. I brought up all these different,
true.
Because it's a way, we're unified in the sense that we're women of faith. So we are unified in that. But I felt like that was not enough to bring the amount of cohesion that would make the show more of a successful, powerful show.
Yeah.
And so and a lot of artists do feel like it's an assignment and they don't like it.
And you can take the blame for that. You're like, I'm the bad teacher that everybody's resentful of.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with her. And we noticed from the very first show that the people that did make new work for the show were some of the best pieces. And so it wasn't, and there were beautiful pieces in that show that people had like, oh, I got this out of my closet and I'll just put it in this show. And they were beautiful too. But the ones that really struck home were the ones that were made for the show. And we found that it increased the quality of the work since we were going to be asking them to make new pieces.
And with all the variety of, you can pick one topic and you have 100 voices and they have different experiences and they have different opinions. They have different thoughts and different feelings. So you will get, and we have gotten such a wide spectrum of interpretations with all of the themes that you still have that variety because the artist has room to interpret.
Absolutely. I love that. I've only seen the last two, but definitely even I went to the most recent one, which is called The Measure of Her Creation, last week. And I just love seeing the wide range of themes within that theme that women were able to come up with and the things that were most meaningful to them and spoke to them and the way that they see the measure of their creation and how that can vary so differently between different women in this group of artistic women of faith.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing, the different interpretations that people took with it. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us the different themes that you have had then in your art show since that time, and how did you choose those themes?
Well, I'm the one who said, okay, ladies, let's have a theme. And so we all brainstormed. So we start off with a long list. We all put our ideas down. We look at them all, and then we slowly whittle it down and finally, make a decision. But it just starts out as a brainstorming session, and we try to have it be current. Like as current as possible. There's so many things that are always current. But at the time with the first theme, the prophet during women's conference asked us to write, as women specifically, to write statement of purpose, our life's statement of purpose, right, Nicole? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, we asked all the women of the church to read the Relief Society statement and to write our own personal statement of purpose after that fashion of the Relief Society mission statement. And so we thought it would be fascinating to see these women write their own personal mission statements as a response to a prompt from the prophet, but do it in our artistic voices.
Wow. I wish that I could have seen that. It sounds very powerful because it's such a personal expression, right?
Yeah.
Some of the ones that I've seen, it's this broader theme that's around topics that influence everyone, but I can see a lot of vulnerability potentially coming through. And would you like to share some of the things that were most impactful as you looked at the art that came in for that show?
Oh,
a while ago.
that specific show, I think Mary Bricky's piece was very powerful.
Oh yeah, Mary.
It was
stained
a
glass.
stained glass, and she had been through some really big trials, and it was this figure, this statuesque woman, like strong, like standing through it all, staying strong, and it was gorgeous. And she wrote a lot, and it was very personal. Was it a poem?
Yeah, she
Nicole?
wrote a poem, and some of it was in Hebrew, I think. I can't remember.
And
Sorry,
it was
Mary.
definitely sorry, Mary. It was definitely a very vulnerable moment in her life, and she decided to share it in that venue, in that forum, and it was gorgeous. And everyone just,
gosh, there were so many
that was just one.
Yeah, but it was really powerful to see just their testimonies being born. Yeah, in so many different mediums. So it was really cool.
Well, I think when you think about statement of purpose, all of our purposes can be so different, what we feel called to do in this life. And so I'm sure that it was very powerful to see and to experience the intimacy of being able to get a glimpse into this very intimate, vulnerable, personal, statement of purpose of their connection to themselves, the divine, what they feel that they are called to do and give and be in the world.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And then enter the next show, which was a couple years later. It was the same process. We all, had. I tend to be the one who wants to push the envelope a little bit more. We kind of balance each other out. I'm like,
we try
let's go as far as we can go, because the purpose, we want this to be a venue that everybody can come to and
feel safe.
And feel safe, like wherever they are. We don't measure people's testimonies. We don't judge where they're at spiritually or anything. Everyone falls where they fall. And we want to be a venue and a space where people from all different points and all different sides can gather. And so we're trying to kind of be a bridge, if you will. So we're trying to walk this line of, being welcoming and inclusive and interesting to everyone, and all those things. So we wanted the themes to be current, also, interesting. We want to grab people's attention. We want to, and Heavenly Mother. She's a hot topic.
I know Heavenly Mother.
And honestly, we could have, after that show, we said, we could have every show on Heavenly Mother. Like, you could just pick another title that goes there. I mean, you can go there with pretty much anything. But
well, we could have. I'll just hop in for a second.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Mary was going through a divorce at the time, and we had explored all kinds of themes. And then, like, as Laura said, but Mary was going through a lot of hard time, and she sort of wrote us this email. She wrote us an email on why Heavenly Mother would be a good, theme kind of thing. We had talked about it. And then she wrote an email and was like, read my email. And then she said, I think, so going back to the first two shows, we met the director of the Church History Museum, and she came down and purchased some works from the show. And so we kind of started a relationship with her and kind of asked her, could we possibly have a show at the Church History Museum? And she said, maybe, let's see what you got, make a proposal. And so Mary really wrote this proposal because she had done all of this research on Heavenly Mother and was really having some strong feelings about that. And we of course were like, I think it's great. And I was like, I think we should and we were kind of like, should we do this show now? Or I think we should do it eventually. Eventually we should do a show about Heavenly Mother eventually. And I was just like, let's just do it now while we can. Let's just do it now.
Seize the moment.
Yeah, seize the day. Let's do it. And so we actually did propose that to the Church History Museum. And while it didn't get accepted, I think they ended up doing the Minerva Tigard exhibit because they have to plan their shows 5 years in advance. She did tell me that there were several other proposals for art shows about Heavenly Mother. And we were just lucky that we still had a venue that we were connected with, that we could still do it. Didn't matter, if it was out of the Church History Museum or not. And so after they had said, we've decided to go in a different direction, we're going to host a different type of show, we were kind of like, oh, bummer, like, what are we going to do? And then we were like, let's just do it. Let's just do it at Anthony's and do the Heavenly Mother show. And it was really exciting because we didn't know what we were going to get into or learn, or, we just knew the doctrine of Heavenly Mother. And Mary actually wrote the theme statement for that as well. And it was basically, we just want to learn more about her, and we want to think about what our relationship is to divinity and the divine feminine, and let's make art about this. And so eventually, we went through all kinds of iterations of the theme because we didn't want to be contrary to we didn't want to take it too far, like that is in a direction that was more speculative. We were just, and this was even before we'd received that counsel. We were just
artists speculate. What do artists?
Yeah. We were just
speculate.
So we were just trying to figure out a way to make it so that it was, what's the word I'm looking for? That was appetizing, I guess.
For all. Yeah.
I think it was very appetizing. It's something that it's kind of like if you're going to a birthday party for children, you have to know what kind of, if there's going to be children and parents, you got to know what kind of food is going to be appealing to everyone, right?
Yes.
And so finding, I'm sure, something that could feel inviting and safe, and all at the same time, that could catch their interest, but wouldn't be so extreme that it would be scary to people, or
right, because we
feel
were
like they couldn't be there.
that we were addressing something that was taboo, and it just made
It
made me frustrated that the topic was even taboo at all. Right,
absolutely,
because I feel like as soon as there's conflict and as soon as there's some kind of contention, there goes the spirit, right? And so if you want people to learn about this sacred topic and you want people to really engage with it, you're going to need the spirit there to help, soften hearts and learn about this beautiful relationship between our heavenly parents. And I think that we really wanted to focus on that, or at least I did. Laura was always there pushing the envelope, as she does. We make a really good team in that way. And so in the end, we decided on the theme Reflections of a Mother in Heaven. And we wanted the wording to be a mother in heaven to match the wording that with the Gospel Topics essay.
So what was that experience when you started reaching out to artists about that exhibit? Were there some that were like, "Ooh, we shouldn't be doing this"?
Yes.
There were,
Yes.
Most though responded with, "Oh my gosh, I've been thinking about this and I am so excited." And I think a lot of women have been thinking about this for years and years. And we're excited to finally have a venue to express their thoughts on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So most of it was positive and excitement and, hooray. And then you get the ones that say, what are you doing? I make art that brings people closer to Christ. We should only be making art about Christ. So those people didn't participate, right? Like it was their decision.
And we got the same thing when we did this year's show too. There were people that were like, it's not really my thing, not interested in this, and so that's fine, you never know.
Enough people are interested. Obviously, we've had a great body of work, and the Heavenly Mother show, and it was amazing. It was so powerful. There was so much hype.
There was such a hunger for it.
It was like the people were hungry and they were getting fed by going to the show and feeling safe, like they could be fed in that way. I had a woman approach me. I was there for an event, I think, and she had gone and she said, I've never felt like I could talk about Heavenly Mother with my daughter, but after going to this show, I feel like I can do that. Stuff like that makes you feel, we're doing something right, having some sort of positive impact on the world. And so many people just expressed to me, and probably you, Nicole, and, just the sheer gratitude and joy and even relief of broaching the topic. It was like a weight was lifted at the time. It was very exciting. In that time, it was like there was this surge of energy around pushing through the silence and moving into the celebration of Heavenly Mother, and people were jumping on board, and it was exciting, and it felt
we were really
amazing.
Celebrating and cherishing this doctrine that we have, and then the reflections on it were amazing. So we had in the art show, we didn't know what we were getting, right? Like we said, we invited the artists to make new work, and then whatever they bring kind of is in the show, like we don't really take it out unless it's super inappropriate or something, but we really don't, and we let them have it. We let them write their statements, and it's just a genuine expression of their thoughts. And we found that there were like themes within their entries, right? And so the first thing we noticed was Heavenly Mother as an individual, as a person. And there were these portraits of Heavenly Mother referencing different in being expressed in different cultures as well. It was beautiful. And there was one where she was praying, or she was hearing the prayers of her children. There was one where I can't remember all of them, where she just looked different, right? It looked in various ways. So she was portrayed in sort of like her as a person. And so there was another one that was sort of like, things that I inherited from my mother. And so it was just like this, it was a still life of like gifts that she had, that she believed had come from her Heavenly Mother. And then the next one was Heavenly Mother and creation, and sort of how we as creators and artists have inherited this gift from our mother in heaven, and creation playing a role in her life as well as ours, and how we reflect that. And then the next one was her role as a mother. And so it was interesting. There were these two layers ahead of even being a mother that were more individualistic about her specifically. And then the next room was her as a mother, and these beautiful portrayals of motherhood. And there was one in particular, Chelsea Walker's piece, that was her sending her spirit child off into mortality. And it was this beautiful moment between a mother and child that, she was saying goodbye to us. And what would that have been like, And then the next room was a really beautiful room, and one of my favorites. It was the Heavenly Parents room, is kind of what we called it. And it was Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother together in tandem and equally together. And there were portrayals of them together. Rose de Tocqueville's piece was just fascinating. It was just incredible expressing that. And then the last one was it was sort of like a great conclusion to the show. It was, and how we are reflections of Heavenly Mother. So we're reflecting on Heavenly Mother, but then also we ourselves as women are reflections of our Heavenly Mother, which is in our doctrine, right? We're in her image. We're, as women, that part of that divinity.
One of my favorite pieces from that show that still stands out to me is Maggie Haslam. Maggie Golightly Haslam. It was a beautiful triptych with watercolors and text underneath each watercolor shape. And each one was framed separately. Oh God, where is she? Oh God, where is she? Oh God, where is she? And yes, so powerful. Just the text alone, the way she presented it's just, I thought it was just spectacular, and really drove okay, where is she? Let's find her. Let's include her.
Right.
Let's involve her.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even just hearing you describing pieces that I have seen, I am getting goosebumps again. Right.
Yeah.
And truly, as I shared at the beginning, when I walked into that exhibit, I felt the holiness there. It was just so strong. It was just like in the air. You felt like you could just touch.
Yeah. Well, it's
like
a very holy
grab onto
subject.
it.
It's very holy.
Uh-huh. And I started seeking for Heavenly Mother, 11, 12 years ago. And I have a child who is turning 10 this year. And for her birth, I knew that my mother was going to be there. I knew that she would be there with me. And at that time, I was gathering things to have with me at my birth and to remind me of things that would give me strength. And one of the things that I wished that I had was I wanted a painting, a picture of Heavenly Mother, something to represent that for me. And that was in 2014. And I remember just yearning and wishing that there were something like that I could have. But at that point, there was nothing that I was aware of, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if probably somebody somewhere had done something, but it was not well known. And so I had wished that I could have created something for myself. But as a kid, I was a pretty decent artist, but I haven't done much with it since then. So I didn't feel like I could do that much. But I just loved walking into that room and just having this feast of what I had hungered for and what I had desired and wanted. And then knowing that you had helped to create this feast of symbolism, of things that people could hold, could look at, could see, that could help them to get, to gain even greater connection, greater strength to the divine, and to draw on that in ways that I had wished for in that moment. And now I have lots of art that is from these different things, prints and things like that are in my home that help me, just as I do about Christ, to feel connected to the greater divine, to my divine, the heritage that I come from, right? To my parents. And so you have given such a gift in expanding that so much, what is available for people to be able to connect with. And I think it's interesting too, Laura, when you're talking about how some of the pushback, some people were saying things like, oh, well, we're just supposed to make art about Jesus, right? We need to focus on Christ. And I think that is beautiful and wonderful. And obviously we have so much art about Christ, but it's interesting because I bet if you were to ask them and say, we want to do an art show about your heritage, your ancestry, I bet you probably would not have that same pushback.
Right.
I think they likely would be like, okay, absolutely. This is really interesting. I can create a piece about my great-great-grandmother or about, people from this part of the world. And it wouldn't be seen as something that's taking away from Christ. It would just be another piece of their heritage and of something that gives them strength. And yet, with this one topic, they have this wall that keeps them from being able to create art about their divine heritage, right? Like they could do a piece about their mother and they wouldn't think that was dangerous or problematic, but about their heavenly mother. And I hope that we're kind of moving past that and realizing that we can have a more whole, open embracing of all of the goodness and the divinity and all of that out there.
Elder Oaks said that our divinity or our theology begins and ends with heavenly parents, right? And so that's where we were in the beginning. And the purpose of Christ is to help us return to our heavenly parents and to become like them, right? That's the whole purpose of Christ, is to help us fulfill the measure of our creation. So, and that being the new theme this year, right? I think that if we don't understand why we need Christ, then we won't understand him. We won't appreciate the gift that he has given us. And if we don't understand where we're going, then we won't care about getting there.
Totally.
I think that knowledge of Heavenly Mother is a big change in our patriarchal history. And I've always had really beautiful relationships with the patriarchs in my life, and I'm very grateful to them. And I've had a lot of good men in my life, but historically, throughout all of history, right, everything has been sort of told from a male's perspective. And if we are to facilitate change, people need to be able to see it. And so having art as a venue so you can see what it would even look like, it helps people get out of that fear of change. There is such a fear of change. There's so much resentment and contention when it comes to change, right? In anything you want to do. If I want to change my kids' clothes, right? They, don't want to. They don't want to change. They don't want to wear new shoes. They don't want to change. It's hard. And there's this natural resistance to it. But I think as soon as there's a visual representation of it, then it can soften hearts and allow that idea come into the world.
But I think something that we sometimes struggle with in this sphere is that sometimes people feel that discomfort means
that it's wrong.
That it's wrong.
And it doesn't.
Right?
It doesn't.
When without discomfort, there's not growth. And discomfort is just a part of our life experience. And sometimes it's actually a part of our experience that helps us to learn and grow. I'm uncomfortable when I am having to learn new skills, right? When I am climbing a mountain, because I do a lot up in the mountains, right? It's like, there's a lot of times when I am uncomfortable, but actually that discomfort is something that is building my muscle, is building my capacity for action, right? And yeah. And I love, as you're saying, how art just has a different way of kind of, I think, reaching past some of those walls, of dismantling some of the defensiveness or the closedness that some people may have, and helping them to feel something in a different way and to think about something in a different way that is less threatening and more inviting.
And I think when when we feel the Spirit and when we are in a place of holiness, we tend to feel peace, which is the opposite of that discomfort. And so I think that is, there's a desire to stay at peace. So, I think that's kind of what people are facing a lot, is sort of, well, how can I embrace this if I don't feel at peace about it? And exploring those emotions and really understanding where they're coming from. Is it because it's change and you would have to think about things a little bit differently? Or is it because it's wrong? Is it because, I think that you have to break those things apart, and not just in this topic, in a lot of areas.
Totally. And not just jumping to the conclusions of, oh, this is uncomfortable.
That's what we ask people to do as missionaries all the time, right? Is to break down what it is they actually are believing and see how those commonalities are going to bring them to Christ and the LDS church, right? And so doing it within ourselves is also another process.
So I want to make sure that we're able to talk about the current art show. And then I also want to be able to hear a little bit about your journeys when it comes to the divine feminine for this podcast. So is there anything more that you'd like to share right now about that Reflections on a Mother in Heaven exhibit before we dive into the measure of her creation?
I will say that our current theme is sort of has grown from that theme, that the measure of our creation ultimately is to become like our Heavenly Mother as women. And so it's sort of a subtle way of doing that, but it's a lot more. There's a lot more involved too, and other concepts in different directions that artists could take it, right? It's not quite as focused, but also very powerful as well to see the different interpretations. But I will say that it definitely builds on the last show.
And so how is that kind of how that came about? Would you like to tell us how you decided to land on that theme?
I think this theme was like one of the hardest that we have ever had. We had a really hard time coming up with a theme.
But it was hard because Heavenly Mother was so successful. It really was, like, in every possible way, that I think we were a little, how are we going to follow that? How can you follow a show like that? How,
It's kind of like at church when people are like, I don't want to be the speaker after so-and-so. It's like, who wants to come after Heavenly Mother?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And so we were concerned that, oh no, there isn't going to be as much interest. Oh no, like, what are we going to do because of that? Because it was so successful. And so I think that added to it just taking a long time. And we threw around several ideas. But yeah, we landed on the measure of her creation. As Nicole said, it is connected, to Heavenly Mother, can be very much so related, but it gave the artist room to breathe, right? So they could go there if they wanted, but they didn't have to go there at all. So we liked that aspect of it.
We talked about so many different things that led to it. We talked a lot about wanting to emphasize equality between men and women, and that's part of our doctrine, and visualize maybe ways that we can live that doctrine more fully. We talked about women's role in the creation itself, not just as creators, but in the creation. We talked about priesthood. We talked about just women's issues that go on in the church and trying to figure out, okay, well, what would be interesting for people to see, but also what's going on right now in the conversation, right? We give this theme out a year in advance, and we had no idea what would be happening right now. And we really pray about it, and we really think like, okay, what's going to be relevant to the time? What is it that needs to be heard? And we had another theme. I think we're going to do this theme, and I won't tell you what it is, but I won't announce.
You're not going to give us the secret on this podcast. Breaking news.
But we were like, oh, well, why don't we do that? Because we jumped into the Heavenly Mother show. Why don't we do this next theme? And we really felt like we needed to pause and really focus on this. And so the measure of her creation, as you know, right now has become a hot topic and is something that is people are talking about right now, which is kind of cool to see that.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it. And if you haven't yet, please leave us a review. If you'd like to support the podcast monetarily, you can make a monthly donation at anchor.fm/inherimage. We hope you'll tune in next Sunday for another inspiring episode.